December 9th, 2025. While Vladimir Putin is busy at the Dubai Air Show bragging to wealthy sheikhs that his Pantsir S1 system is invincible back home, reality just punched him in the face. Exactly 48 hours ago, the Tula KBP Instrument Design Bureau, the single largest factory in Russia producing those very Pantsir systems, was erased from the map. This was a surgical execution carried out by 6 Ukrainian Bayraktar TB2 drones and 4 Neptune cruise missiles. Ukraine didn't just bomb a building, they sent a message loud and clear. We aren't just fighting your air defense on the front lines, we are cutting off the supply right at the source. Satellite images from Maxar confirm the devastation. What was once a high-tech facility is now a smoking black crater. Putin's flagship drone killer factory just got killed by drones. At 02:51 a.m., 6 Bayraktar TB2 drones taxi onto the tarmac. These aren't the shiny new toys of 2022, these are battle-hardened veterans, their carbon fiber skins scarred from 3 years of war. They take off in pairs, climbing steeply into the freezing darkness. They don't level off at the standard patrol height. Tonight, they push their service ceilings to the absolute limit, 25,000 feet. At this altitude, the air is thin and the temperature is -40 degrees. They throttle back to a loitering speed of just 120 knots. To a Russian radar operator scanning for a Mach 2 F-16 or a low-flying Storm Shadow, a composite drone moving this slowly at this altitude looks like nothing more than a glitch or a cloud formation. They are effectively invisible. At 03:09 a.m., the formation crosses the border into the Bryansk region airspace. No alarms, no surface-to-air missile locks. The Russian IADS, Integrated Air Defense System, is looking down, hunting for terrain-hugging cruise missiles, completely ignoring the vultures circling in the stratosphere. At 03:11 a.m., the 6 Bayraktars arrive directly over Tula. Below them lies the KBP Instrument Design Bureau, glowing with the amber sodium lights of the night shift. It is a massive industrial complex sprawling over 300 acres. Through the high-definition thermal lens of the Canadian-made Westcam MX-15D sensors, the target looks like a toy set. The drone operators in the ground control station flip the safety switches. 24 MAM-L laser-guided smart munitions, 4 under each drone, are armed. These aren't massive bunker busters, they are surgical scalpels, weighing just 48 pounds each, designed to hit a specific window frame from 4 miles up. The flight leader marks the target coordinates. The laser designators paint an invisible cone of death on the factory roof. The onboard computer calculates the drop solution, wind speed, air density, terminal velocity. The readout flashes green. 74 seconds to release. The vultures stop circling. They line up for the kill. At 03:12 a.m., the primary air defense firebase sits just 1.8 miles from the main gate of the Tula factory. It is a fortress designed to stop anything from a swarm of drones to a supersonic cruise missile. In the center of the clearing, Pantsir S1 unit number 217 sits idling, its massive 1L122-2E search radar rotating rhythmically at 8 revolutions per minute. Inside the cramped control cabin, Lieutenant Ivanov is fighting the crushing boredom of the graveyard shift. He cradles a cup of tea that went cold an hour ago, his face illuminated by the soft green glow of the 1RS21E targeting monitor. The data is comforting. No contacts within 36 kilometers. The sky is empty, the spectrum is clean. Outside, a second Pantsir unit has its launch tubes elevated near the southern perimeter fence, its optical cameras sweeping the tree line in a slow mechanical arc. The encrypted radio network crackles with the routine chatter of a secure facility. Sector 3 clear. Sector 7 clear. The dogs are quiet, comrade. 14 Rosgvardia troops march their patrol beats, the sound of their heavy boots echoing on the frozen concrete. 2 BTR-82A armored personnel carriers sit with their engines idling, the heat shimmer from their exhaust distorting the cold air. Every man is alert, every sensor is active. But they are all making the same fatal mistake. They are scanning the horizon for cruise missiles and the fence line for saboteurs. Not a single pair of eyes looks straight up. Not a single radar beam is tilted to scan the zenith. They are completely oblivious to the 6 Bayraktar TB2s hanging 7.6 miles directly above their helmets, silent as the grave and fully armed. At 03:13 a.m., the quiet night inside Lieutenant Ivanov's cabin shatters instantly. The green calm of his radar screen erupts into a flashing red nightmare. The vertical scan radar, designed to detect dive-bombing attacks, suddenly picks up 6 distinct, high-angle returns plunging from the stratosphere. The system screams a warning tone that every air defender dreads. "Aircraft! Bayraktar!" Ivanov screams, his hand slamming onto the engagement panel. The Pantsir's automated logic takes over. The turret whips upward with mechanical violence. In 2.8 seconds, 4 57E6 interceptor missiles leap from their tubes, trailing blinding white exhaust plumes. They race skyward at Mach 3, seeking the heat signatures of the diving drones. 2 fireballs blossom in the high-altitude darkness as 2 of the lead Bayraktars are shredded by tungsten fragmentation rods. But the math is on Ukraine's side. 4 drones remain. The remaining missiles miss their lock as the drones execute pre-programmed evasive banks. "Krasuka, full power, jam them now!" Ivanov yells into his headset, his voice cracking with panic. 4 miles away, the massive Krasuka 4 electronic warfare station surges to life, pumping gigawatts of jamming noise into the air to sever the drone's control links. It's a desperate move to blind the attackers. But up at 20,000 feet, the Ukrainian pilots are already laughing. The MAM-L munitions have already left the rails. They are unpowered gliders now, homing in on laser spots that were painted seconds ago. You can jam a radio signal, but you cannot jam gravity. The missiles are falling, and the electronic shield is useless. At 03:14 a.m., the 4 surviving Bayraktar drones execute their primary function. They are here to crack the shell. 16 MAM-L smart munitions detach from the hardpoint simultaneously. These are silent gliders, riding the air current straight down into the chaos. Moments later, the roof of the Tula KBP plant erupts. 8 munitions strike the final assembly hall with surgical precision, while the other 8 punch through the thin metal roof of the radar component warehouse. The warheads detonate, releasing a thermite mixture that burns at over 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The shockwave lifts the entire roof structure hundreds of feet into the air before it crashes back down into the inferno. Inside, the delicate electronics and CNC machines are instantly bathed in molten fire. Inside the Pantsir cabin, Lieutenant Ivanov is screaming. His screen is filled with falling debris and burning targets. He slams his fist on the console, calling for the reserve unit from Shtyokovo to rush to his position. He believes this is the main event. He thinks he is fighting a drone swarm. He is dead wrong. Meanwhile, exactly 26 miles from the Russian border in the dense forests of Sumy, a nondescript civilian container truck pulls onto a dirt road. To a satellite, it looks like a grocery hauler. But then, the hydraulic roof hisses open. 4 launch canisters elevate to a 45-degree angle. 4 R-360 Neptune cruise missiles erupt from the tubes in rapid succession. The rocket boosters kick up a cloud of dust and pine needles. Before the smoke even clears, the truck driver is already dropping the hydraulics, the tires screeching as the vehicle disappears back into the tree line. The ace has been played. The 4 Neptunes drop to their cruise altitude, skimming just 30 feet above the surface of the Oka River at nearly the speed of sound. They are fast, low, and invisible to the high-angle radars currently scanning the sky for drones. Back in Tula, Ivanov is still trying to track the Bayraktars when his lower sector radar finally blips. Fast movers, low altitude, incoming from the west. He freezes. He grabs the joystick and violently slews the turret downwards, trying to bring the twin 30mm cannons to bear on the tree line. But the Pantsir's turret rotation speed is finite. Physics is faster than hydraulics. The first Neptune slams into the southern wall of the main storage facility, punching through the reinforced concrete like a battering ram. The second, third, and fourth missiles follow in a deadly rhythm, each impact separated by mere heartbeats. They don't hit the assembly line, they hit the Holy of Holies, the main magazine holding the finished stock of 57E6 air defense missiles. The warehouse containing hundreds of solid fuel rockets and loaded launch tubes instantly reaches critical temperature. The chain reaction is immediate. Every missile inside the burning warehouse detonates simultaneously. This isn't a fire, it is a synthetic volcano. A massive fireball engulfs the entire southern sector of the complex. The shockwave is so massive that it consumes both the factory and the 2 defending Pantsir units outside. Lieutenant Ivanov doesn't even have time to finish his scream before his vehicle is vaporized by the very weapons he was supposed to protect. The factory that builds Russia's air defense has just been destroyed by its own inventory. High above the roiling columns of black smoke at an altitude of 25,000 feet, the 6th and final Bayraktar TB2 performs a slow, banking turn. The air up here is thin and silent. a stark contrast to the hellscape unfolding on the ground below. Inside the ground control station in Riven, the pilot adjusts the gain on his thermal camera. The sensor is momentarily blinded, washed out by the sheer intensity of the heat rising from the crater. As the smoke drifts, the image resolves. The massive Tula KBP facility, the sprawling industrial heart of Russia's air defense, is simply gone. Where the assembly hall once stood, there is now only a glowing, jagged scar in the earth, pulsating with the white-hot remnants of molten steel. It looks less like a factory and more like the mouth of a volcano. The secondary explosions from the cooking-off missiles create rhythmic flashes like a dying heartbeat. The pilot watches the destruction of the very machines designed to kill him. It is a moment of pure poetic justice. With a flick of a switch, he cuts the laser designator. The Bayraktar banks north, fading into the dark, frozen sky. The mission is done. The executioners are going home. Now, let's pull back the camera from the smoking crater to analyze the full seismic impact of what just happened. Because this wasn't just an explosion. It was a lesson in physics and irony. If we look at this strike through the lens of a forensic analysis, the math is absolutely terrifying. When the 4 Neptune cruise missiles impacted the main magazine, they didn't just detonate their own warheads, they acted as the blasting caps for a massive secondary payload provided by the Russians themselves. Inside that warehouse were 480 fully fueled 57 E6 interceptor missiles, and when you combine the high explosive fragmentation of the Neptunes with the volatile solid rocket fuel of the Russian inventory, you get a total energy release equivalent to 2.8 tons of TNT. The temperature at the epicenter exceeded 7,500 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to not just melt the structural steel beams of the factory, but to literally vaporize them, turning the Tula KBP plant into a ghost. By the morning of December 10, 2025, satellite imagery from Maxar confirmed the scale of the catastrophe. Where the assembly line once stood, there is now only a blackened void. The specialized tooling and robotics required to build these complex systems are gone, along with a strategic stockpile of 720 interceptor missiles and 96 launch tubes that have been reduced to ash. Even worse for Moscow, the 42 Pantsir systems they had signed contracts to deliver to foreign buyers in 2026 are now vaporware, wiping billions of dollars from their future revenue in a single night. But the physical damage pales in comparison to the humiliation of the timing. The context here is a masterclass in psychological warfare. Right now, Vladimir Putin is standing in an air-conditioned chalet at the Dubai Air Show, trying to sell the Pantsir S1 to wealthy foreign buyers as the world's ultimate shield against modern threats. He is pitching invincibility to the world stage at the exact moment the factory that builds them is burning down back home. This connects directly to a pattern of Ukrainian dominance we have seen before, echoing the sinking of the Moskva. The flagship of the Black Sea Fleet was sunk by these very same Neptune missiles, and now Russia has lost their premier air defense factory to the same Ukrainian-made killer. From the drone strikes on the Omsk refineries to the raid on the Engels bomber base, and now Tula, Ukraine has proven a simple, brutal theorem. There is no such thing as a safe rear area in Russia anymore. The concept of strategic depth that Moscow has relied on for centuries is dead. This strike represents a strategic checkmate for the Russian General Staff. The Pantsir S1 is designed to be the goalkeeper that protects the long-range S-400 systems from cheap drones. By cutting off the supply of Pantsirs at the source, Ukraine is effectively stripping the armor off the S-400 batteries. Without these short-range defenders, the expensive long-range systems are naked against swarm attacks, leaving Russia running out of shotgun shells to shoot down mosquitoes. To summarize the night, the factory responsible for building Russia's drone killer was just destroyed by 6 drones and 4 cruise missiles. The hunter became the prey, and the entire production line is now a scrap heap. The lesson for today is clear. When you go to Dubai to brag about your shield, make sure you didn't leave your sword factory unguarded. So here's the question for all the armchair generals out there. If you were the Russian commander in charge of rebuilding this mess, how would you protect the next factory? Would you surround it with more S-400s that you can't afford to lose? Or would you bury the whole thing underground? Drop your tactical solutions in the comments below. And the top 3 most creative plans will be analyzed in our next video. If you enjoyed watching a $500 million mistake unfold in real time, smash that like button and subscribe.